And so this is a story regarding Joe Biden. Joe Biden reversing his stance on his support for the Hyde Amendment. And Joe Biden, again, like I said in the last segment, he is not somebody that can be trusted when it comes to advocating for actual progressive leftist policies, because he's not a progressive and he's not a leftist. And he loves to sell out to conservatives. He's got tons of conservative friends. Not that long ago, he was shown praising Dick Cheney. Oh, I'm good friends with Dick Cheney. I get along with him. Dude, if you're getting along with the fucking war criminal, I know there's a lot of war criminals out there. Like, even Barack Obama's a war criminal, right? He's, declared wars, unconstitutional wars. He's, killed, American citizens with drone strikes and stuff. So, but I'm just saying, in regard to, like, Dick Cheney, who was the worst of the worst when it comes to war criminals, like, if you're liking that guy and he's a Republican and you call yourself a Democrat, then you're not, there's no way I can trust your judgment. Like, your judgment is shot, So, but that's getting off on a little bit of a tangent. What I was going to say, however, is that when it comes to, just the general positions of Joe Biden, he's not somebody that can be trusted. And this is a perfect example of that, because he just conveniently switched his stance on the Hyde Amendment, which, by the way, refers to federal funding of abortions. So the Hyde Amendment, it doesn't allow federal funding of abortions. Before the Hyde Amendment, the government was able to pay for so basically the taxpayers were able to pay for abortions that were conducted. So and there's a big discussion that has come about where they've said with the Hyde Amendment existing, it affects a lot of women of color. So women of color are unable to get abortions because they have to pay out of pocket, essentially, unless they go to like a free clinic or maybe even to, I think, Planned Parenthood. I'm not sure exactly how Planned Parenthood does their when they allow a woman to get an abortion, but the Hyde Amendment prevents the government taxpayers to pay for that. So they don't have to pay for that. And, I get it. If people don't want to pay for an abortion because they're so-called morally against it, then that's fine. That's what they can believe. But at the end of the day, it's something that is affecting women who, listen, if a woman gets raped, she doesn't want to give birth to the child that was created by the rapist. And if you have any decent amount of, if you have any decency in your heart, you should be okay. You should be okay with letting that person decide that they don't want to give birth to that baby, because at the end of the day, that child is, when they grow up, they're not going to be able to. They're not going to know who they're not going to have a father, essentially, right? Or at least they wouldn't want to know who their father is because the father was a rapist. So, yeah, okay, so. The title of the article here is Biden reverses stance on Hyde Amendment after blowback. Democratic presidential hopeful former Vice President Joe Biden said Thursday he no longer supports the Hyde Amendment, just one day after reaffirming his decades-long support for the ban on federal funding for abortions. Quote, "If I believe healthcare is a right, as I do, I can no longer support an amendment that makes the right dependent on someone's zip code," he said at a Democratic National Committee gala in Atlanta. Biden cited abortion restrictions recently passed by Republican governors for his change in position. "I can't justify leaving millions of women without the access to care they need and the ability to exercise their constitutionally protected right," he said. So let's just pause there for a second. I just want to point out, it's very interesting that he, and the articles just said it, he decided to change his position on abortion in regard to the Hyde Amendment because of restrictive laws that have been passed in several states. I think the main one was Alabama, then I think they did one in Missouri, I think, and then somewhere else. And yeah, so it's very interesting that all of a sudden you decide to change your position on the Hyde Amendment because you're seeing how bad these certain policies that are being pushed by Republican and one state with a Democratic governor. It was Louisiana. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. Louisiana was the other one, I think. I think Missouri was on their list too. But the two main ones, because those ones got the most attention in the media, was the first one was Alabama, which was a woman, a female governor, older woman. I forgot what her name was. Yeah, I don't know. I forgot her name. But anyway, some older woman, and the most restrictive abortion policy apparently to date ever. And then Louisiana followed suit apparently. And that's a Democratic governor in Louisiana. And I mean, I guess there are still a lot of right-wing Democrats in Louisiana. I can't even think of a Democrat in Louisiana. Well, maybe if it's an African American Democrat, maybe. But I can't think of any other white Democrats that are in Louisiana right now as far as members of Congress. Maybe there's lower branches of government for sure. That could be, but I mean, obviously those are the ones that I'm sure those are the ones that got involved in the passing of the one in Louisiana. But it's very convenient for Joe Biden to all of a sudden change his position because other states are certain states are wanting to, are pushing these anti-abortion stances and then passing the laws. Why couldn't you do that before? So why couldn't you make that decision before those laws were passed or the legislation was written? All of a sudden you had to wait until the laws were passed in those specific states to make that decision. Yeah, typical convenient and opportunistic position taken by Joe Biden. So let me continue here. It says the presidential frontrunner added that he makes, quote, no apologies for his previous support for the Hyde Amendment. Oh, thanks a lot, prick. He says, let's see here. It says, quote, but circumstances have changed. I've been working through the final details of my healthcare plan, like others in this race. Ooh. And I have been struggling with the problems that Hyde now presents. Wow. I mean, look at that, man. Pretending like, oh, I'm struggling. In the back of my mind, I'm really having a lot of problems dealing with this. Like, you're just now dealing with this into 2019, almost halfway through 2019. All of a sudden, you've realized how bad it is. You know how long people have been talking about the issue of abortion? How long women have been advocating against banning abortions? All of a sudden, you're realizing it, and you're crafting your healthcare plan around it too. Idiot. He says Biden's presidential campaign has said Wednesday that he still supported the controversial ban. The news sparked intense blowback from members of his party, including fellow presidential hopefuls who criticized Biden for maintaining his stance amid a spat of abortion restrictions passing state legislatures. The remarks also drew criticism from women's health and abortion rights groups, including Planned Parenthood and NARAL Pro-Choice America. Planned Parenthood CEO Leanna Wen lauded Biden's announcement on Twitter, quote, happy to see Joe Biden embrace what we have long known to be true. Hyde blocks people, particularly women of color and women with low incomes, from accessing safe legal abortion care, Wen wrote. There was another part, and then she continues, thank you to our RJ partners. What is RJ? RJ partners for leading the charge in repealing this discriminatory policy. And then it says, Elise Hogue, president of NARAL, Pro-Choice America, similarly celebrated Biden's reversal. She says, quote, at a time where the fundamental freedoms enshrined in Roe are under attack, we need full-throated allies in our leaders. Leadership is often about listening and learning, Hogue wrote in a statement. We're pleased that Joe Biden has joined the rest of the 2020 Democratic field in coalescing around the party's core values, support for abortion rights, and the basic truth that reproductive freedom is fundamental to the pursuit of equality and economic security in this country. It says Biden, a devout Catholic who personally opposes abortion, sparked a wave of outrage from abortion rights supporters when his campaign told NBC News he still supported the Hyde Amendment. It says the Hyde Amendment was first passed more than 40 years ago in response to the Supreme Court Roe v. Wade ruling, which established a woman's right to abortion. It's been reauthorized in annual government spending bills ever since, barring Medicaid, Medicare, and other federal health programs from paying for abortions. But opponents of the ban say it disproportionately impacts low-income women, particularly women of color. His support for the 40-year ban was a departure from the position of the Democratic National Committee and every Democrat running for president. So I guarantee you, if this was Bernie Sanders, which he has never done, but if Bernie Sanders ever took a position on abortion that was against abortion and anti-choice, and then okay, so let's say obviously that would have already been ridiculous. So he would have already gotten called out for it, and rightly so. But if he would have done that and then said, "Oh no, I'm changing my mind now," I guarantee they would have said, "You're canceled already." Even if you changed your mind, so even if you, Bernie Sanders, had that position of being anti-choice and you changed because you wanted to, because you evolved on the position, as many politicians say, they still would have said, no, we don't accept that because you're Bernie Sanders and we want to get rid of you and you're going against the Democratic Party, Democratic loyalists, ideals and what they're pushing for. We can't have you because we can't trust you. So why can't we say the same thing about Joe Biden? And why is NARAL and Planned Parenthood so okay with coming out and talking about how they trust Joe Biden? Well, not even so much trust. They applaud him for what he's done. But how do they really actually trust what he's going to do? Like, that just doesn't make any sense. But of course, I mean, if you think about the idea that the Democratic Party and a lot of their loyalists just pretty much trust any Democrat doing whatever they're going to do, it's actually not that surprising. I mean, at the end of the day, they're just going to love whatever a Democrat does. But then if, a non-Democrat, independent like Bernie Sanders, who's running as a Democrat, has always caucused with the Democrats, by the way. But if he does that, they can't trust it. See, so the double standard, as usual, with these loyalist, members of the party, it's just absurd, And these are the same people that complain about purity tests. Are you kidding me? Ugh. Like, you hold Bernie Sanders to a purity. Now we hold their candidates to purity tests because we're pushing for good policies. But when it comes to pushing for shitty policies, they don't have a purity test. So for example, when it comes to Bernie Sanders, he advocates for getting money out of politics. He advocates for Medicare for all. The Democratic Party does not do that. Where on the flip side, Joe Biden, or even Hillary Clinton, they have that sort of like political view that it's like, oh yeah, it's okay, we're willing to compromise on abortion. We're willing to say, like, after, I don't know, a certain period of time. That's what Hillary said in 2016. We're willing to compromise on late-term abortions, for example. I think that's something that Hillary Clinton said in 2016. So, but Bernie Sanders has never done that. He has never shied away from that. And I'm going to get to a segment in a little bit talking about Bernie's position on abortion. And he's always been consistent there. And he has never shied away from being very authentic in his position and maintaining that position consistently. And I mean, you don't have to worry about him stabbing you in the back. You don't have to worry about him trying to wiggle his way out of supporting something. Now, listen, if you have a religious argument and you're talking about how like, oh well, I'm Catholic and I don't want to take a position on this because it's against my religious views, then fine, but at least be upfront about that. Don't all of a sudden change your position in 2019 and say, well, just like every other candidate has done, we have decided to change this position because I think there was another part where I was reading another article, or there was something on Twitter about how he spoke to women 24 hours in the past 24 hours, and then he changed his position. I think Alyssa Milano said that, something like that. But yeah, apparently he spoke to women for 24 hours for one day, and all of a sudden he changed his position. So what happened before those 24 hours you spoke to them? You hadn't spoken to any other women who said that same thing, who said that how dare you supported the Hyde Amendment, how dare you not have a strong position on abortion? What happened? All of a sudden, it took you one day and you changed your mind. So we're running out of time in this segment, but I just want to point you guys to an article that talks about how Joe Biden. This is an article from The Intercept written by Ryan Grimm. This is from June 5th. The title of the article is "Joe Biden Worked to Undermine the Affordable Care Act Coverage of Contraception." So when it comes to the issue of contraception, of course, not the same thing as abortion. It's a separate issue from abortion. He wanted to actually. It says he sought to undermine the Affordable Care Act's contraception mandate, working in alliance with the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops to push for a broad exemption that would have left millions of women without coverage. So, yeah. So, I mean, again, contraception isn't the same exact thing as abortion, but when it comes to, like, for example, if you want to take, birth control, if you wanted to, you want to use some sort of protection from obviously you're gonna, have sex. You're gonna have some sort of sexual relationship with somebody. You want to use contraception. That's perfectly fine. It's perfectly understandable. Whether it's a condom, whether it's a birth control, whatever it is, it's understandable to want to do that, and he needs to get called out for that. And I don't know if they called him out for this, but I mean. Yeah, no, I'm sure they did. It would be surprising if they didn't. But, I mean, it seems like let's see. He tried to undermine the Affordable Care. So this was when he was vice president. So, obviously, Biden tried to do this when he was vice president. So, it was like a lot of backroom negotiations, obviously. So, it wasn't like he was going out and, like, giving... It's not like he was going out and giving, like, speeches and saying, like, oh, this is what I believe, and this is the position that I'm taking because I'm Catholic. This was something that he was doing behind closed doors, and he was undermining President Obama's legislation. And it's amazing, too, because a lot of people call out Bernie Sanders for, you want to pass Medicare for all, which is going to take away healthcare and care for people that are, like, under Obamacare. So, like, a lot of, like, the kind of Obama shills and Democratic Party shills and loyalists say that's what, Medicare for all would do, which is complete bullshit because it just expands Obamacare. So let's just throw that fucking bullshit out there. But that's what they say. When in reality, he's never done that. And if anything, you should worry about somebody like Joe Biden undermining various aspects of Obamacare, let alone the fact that he definitely had a role in not pushing for, like, at least a public option with Obamacare, aside from the fact that it wasn't Medicare for all or anything like that. I guarantee he, when Obama had the chance to at least get a public option for Obamacare, he definitely didn't try and maintain that, because him and Obama kept wanting to sell out to Republicans and kept wanting to push for the policy that would appease the Republicans so they can vote for Obamacare, even though nobody in Congress voted for it, nobody in the Senate voted for it. It was all Democratic votes. So Joe Biden is just he's so incompetent. He's such an incompetent and such a sloppy politician. He just doesn't know what he's doing. And everything to him is just about selling out and evolving and compromising. And it's bullshit. Don't ever take that shit seriously.